As you might have guessed from flipping through this month's issue or from my introduction, we're talking about the power of having friends in business this month. You might be rolling your eyes and saying, yeah, I already know friends in business are important to my success. I already know that. That's great. You should know that already. The reality is, however, while you may know that, are you doing everything you can to develop and nurture those relationships? Your network is a tool. Do you know how to properly use that tool? Well, Scott Stratton does. Scott is the president of Unmarketing. He's an expert in viral, social, and authentic marketing. His book, Unmarketing, Stop Marketing, Start Engaging, was a national bestseller before it was even released. And his latest book, QR Codes Kill Kittens, is bound to be as well. Scott is here to give us the 411 on engaging with one's business friends, anyone from customers to partners in a social media viral-driven world. Scott, pleased to have you here with us today. Welcome to the Success Network.
Oh, thank you, Darren. It's a great pleasure to be here. I have a lot of respect for your magazine.
So, Scott, before we dive in, tell us why Forbes.com named you one of the top 5 social media influencers in the world. What do you think influenced this?
They actually used an algorithm, and so it wasn't a vote. It wasn't like one of those which you see a lot online, which is those vote for me and get all your friends to do it. They actually used like an algorithm that showed influence, which I find is fascinating that they can do that. But it shows, when you say something on Twitter, how much it carries, who shares it, and how much it lives and moves. So for me, they just came out and said, here's the data. Now it's all subjective still, but the data said that I was, in the top of the list for a couple of years now. So you take everything with a grain of salt. I love that thought that I can be influential, but we also can't use that to, and take advantage of it too much.
Yeah, you can't go to the guy you're prospecting and says, hey, do you know how influential I am? Damn it, buy my product, right?
Do you know who you think I am? It's
Yeah.
like you just can't do these things.
Exactly. So one of your particular expertise topics is engagement. So define it for us first, and then tell us why it's crucial to our goal of making friends to drive our business.
From a business side of point, engagement simply is either talking to your customers and asking them questions or answering theirs. Really, engagement is just talking. It's just a fancy way us authors and speakers put it. That engagement is simply when a customer or potential customer asks you something, especially in social media, you just answer them. Except we've made it really fancy. We call it social media now instead of talking. And we think that's an issue we have to think about. It's simple. There was an example from one of the chancellors at one of the universities in St. Louis, and I asked her, she was one of the best examples of talking with her student body, and I said, so why do you do it? And she just answers back to me, are you asking why do I answer my students when they have questions? And she just paused. I'm like, well, that's the best answer I could possibly have. It's simply a no-brainer. Engagement should be a no-brainer for business. We talk to our customers, they talk back to us, and it goes back and forth.
So let's make this real world. Give us one example of each. Someone who is engaging with people out there in a great way and someone you observe that's not so much.
Well, I think there's the answers in the part of the last one, which is I was Weber University in St. Louis, I believe. And it was the entire school does that. Every department does it, all the way up from the top of the line, all the way down to, people in registration. They go to where their students are talking. And to me, that's a real good example of not just a business engaging where they want to. Like some businesses will answer the phone, or some businesses will answer email, or maybe on their Facebook page. But this university said, we're going to go where our students are. So if they were on MySpace, they would be there. But since their students were tweeting and texting, they wanted to be answering there. And that's a great example of today where they're doing things right. And on the flip side of it, you look at things in engagement when it comes to airline industries or cable companies where there's some great examples on one side and there's horrible examples on the other. There's nothing more real time than somebody missing a flight or being delayed and not getting answers. And there's some great examples we all know, like about Southwest Airlines, which have, their reputation is always out there being great, and they do that on social. But then you have other airlines who just almost don't care, or they only talk to influencers. And United helped me with a problem with a flight, and I sat back and said, would they have helped me if I wasn't, quote, that Forbes.com influencer? And I think a lot of times the answer was no.
So, there's nothing less engaging than when you're sitting in your window of 9 to 4 waiting for your cable guy to show up. So I hear you on the cable
I don't know
example.
if you even want to see your cable guy's tweets, because I could be tweeting, "Hey, at the ball game right now, this is good," or enjoying some wings, and you're just sitting there waiting. I don't think Twitter or social media should be mandatory. Like, if you're not a good person, if you're not a nice person, I don't think you want to be leveraging social, because there's an example that just happened 2 days ago with a food truck where somebody tweeted, an employee of the food truck outed a company that because they ordered like $160 worth of food, which is obviously a huge amount for a food truck. It was for a business, and they didn't leave a tip. And so the guy working the food truck outed the company on Twitter. It wasn't the food truck account. It was his own personal one. He didn't disclose where he worked, but he said thanks to ABC company for a $170 order and not tipping. Well, the guy was just fired yesterday for it, because obviously it got back to them. There's only one place they all went for lunch. So not only did they lose that business, the guy lost his job. And his quote, and the best quote of the whole article, was, "I don't think I'm cut out for working in a food truck." It's just amazing for me.
Transparency is not a good thing if you're an evil person. Yeah.
I don't think it is. I don't think authenticity is good if you're a jerk.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good thing.
Now you're just an authentic jerk. Yeah.
Like, bingo. Exactly.
All right. So as a master of engagement, I'm sure you've got some great tools that you use to connect with your followers regularly. So share a few of those tools with us, and what can we use to become as engaging as you are, fine sir?
Well, I think that, the biggest thing is there isn't a lot of tricks. There isn't a lot of apps for me that will do it. The trick for me, my best tool, is consistency. Is that if I'm going to use Twitter as a platform for me, I need to be on there. And so I'm on there a lot less than I was a few years ago, but I'm there every day. So people know that if they say something to me, the turnaround time will be within that, there's a certain range. I don't think... Ask the world out. Ask your followers. Ask your listeners and your readers here. What do they expect when it comes to turnaround time? If I send a company an email, I expect a day, a couple of days, maybe. If I send them a letter in the mail, it's going to be weeks. But if I send them a tweet, the highest level of return expectation is on Twitter. You ask people, it's like literally within an hour they expect something back, if that. So for me, consistency on the platform. So I focused on Twitter. I live there. I want to be on Twitter so much that if I was gone for one day, people would wonder where I was. And that's what happened. And then it's for me, it's Facebook. I'm building my Facebook side of things. Next, we'll be building the podcast. And you have to live in the platforms you want to be known on. That's the best kind of angle for me that there is.
Okay. All right. So I'm sure over time you've devised some rules of engagement, if you will. So what are the shoulds and shouldn'ts, so to speak? Share a few of those with us.
Well, the shoulds is be yourself. Now, mind you, if you're going to be a jerk, then that's okay. My brand, which luckily for me, my brand is my personality. It's me. It turns some people off and gets some people going towards me. I think taking a stand, standing up for things you believe in, but also taking an opinion. I just read a bunch of blog posts over the past week about the new Gmail implications of them making silos on Gmail, tabs where there's a folder now called promotions, and all the newsletters will go in there now for Gmail. And I think this is a big issue for people in marketing in my world. And I've seen about, 12 blog posts about it from people, and all they say is, "We don't know, let's see." That's it. And I'm like, there's no opinion there. I think if we are experts, we're to make advice. So if you go out there in social, take a stand. Don't be afraid to have a personality. When you polarize people, you attract some and you push away others. That's what that is. Also, again, back to consistency. Be there. If you're going to use it, be there. If not, delete it. A dormant social account is more dangerous than not one at all. I think we should remove them. There's no problem in focusing. There's no problem in being just on one platform. But I think we have to realize that if you're not there, but your sign is there, it's like having a store with just nobody manning the store. And also, don't have virtual networking replace in-person networking. They don't replace. Nothing beats face-to-face. I'm a huge online guy. I'm a huge Twitter guy. But nothing beats eye-to-eye, face-to-face. I think virtual networking and social media is a complement to in-person networking, not a replacement.
Glad to hear you say that, because I always thought the answer you're going to give me in terms of one of the best tools that we've got out there is a belly button, right? I mean, ultimately, you use a mobile phone and you use a computer, but it ultimately needs to drive towards getting belly to belly, face to face, heart to heart. So you talked about Twitter as well. I think our modern attitude is that we want everything and we want it right now. So where engagement is concerned, particularly engagement through social media channels, explain how we manage the expectations of engagement, because we can't be there to respond 24/7 to everyone and everything. And I think it actually is creating massive distraction for people who are trying to actually get something done, stay focused and stay concentrated. So how do we manage the expectation that there just aren't enough hours in the day to respond to every tweet from the ether?
I totally 100% agree with you there, right? That it creates this distraction, but it also creates almost a wrongful expectation. And here's the problem. If I answer one tweet at 2 a.m. from a reader of mine because I'm up, that almost sets up the expectation that somebody else sees it. And then if I'm not replying within an hour or two, we've dropped the ball. I had a tweet, I think about 2 years ago, that read on marketing. And he tweeted from Amsterdam at 3 a.m. my time. He tweeted, "On Marketing is the greatest business book I've ever read." And then 3 hours later, I'm still sleeping at this point. 3 hours later, he tweets again, "On Marketing is a fraud," because he didn't reply to my tweet. And I went from hero to zero within 3 hours. And I just looked at it and shook my head. I think one of the best examples I can give about managing expectations is what Vistaprint did. Vistaprint, the online printing company, worldwide, a kind of international audience, which is a huge trouble when your base and your customer service base is based on, let's say, Eastern Standard Time. You can't be 24/7 if you don't have a staff to do it. So what they did is they put in their bio on Twitter. They put in their bio on Twitter and Facebook saying somebody is here 9 to 7 Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so now people know that from the UK, if they tweet something, but it's in the middle of the night, they know the expectation that they won't hear an answer until the following business day in North America. That's a great, real specific way to manage that. But I also think that people see us replying. If somebody sees me reply to somebody and I don't reply to them, they get a little upset with that. So that's why a lot of celebrities, I think, don't reply to a lot of tweets, because you set up that expectation is that if you reply to one, you reply to everyone. And I spend my day on Twitter just replying to people that have tweeted to me. So I can't imagine people or brands with a much, much larger following than I have doing it as well.
Yeah, you talked about going from hero to zero. One of my philosophies is just focus on controlling the controllable, and quite frankly, you can't control crazy, so you just kind of let it need to exist out there. Right. So along this line, and in terms of being able to manage it, because again, social media should just be like a channel of marketing. It's one of the spindles on the wheel. There's a lot more to it. So on that note, you wrote a blog called Mannequin Networking and Why Twitter Automation is Bad. Talk about this for a minute. Let's delve into that for a bit.
Yeah, I've always said that, automating your feeds, where it means you're taking your Facebook posts and pushing them into Twitter, or Twitter into Facebook, or you're scheduling tweets. I've always said that's the same as sending a mannequin to a networking event or a bunch of networking events. Like, you're there, but you're just not there, right? Your brand is there. It's a mannequin with your logo on it, but you're not there engaging in real time. And that's the point. And I want to get something clear to everybody listening right now, that I am of the opinion that social media is not marketing. Social media is a poor marketing tool, a very poor sales tool. I've been in sales and marketing for a very long time, both digitally and offline, and it's a very poor return. And if you look at social media as a marketing tool, it will never live up to everything else. Like, spam has a better click-through rate than Twitter does. It is not a marketing tool to me. It's a customer service tool. It's a networking tool. It's a chatter tool. It's a monitoring tool. That's the difference. Like I always said, if you want to trend on Twitter, if you want to get talked about in social media, you just do something that's worth being talked about. That's for other people. That's the chatter. That's not the marketing. I'm a marketing guy. This is what I do. And I'm a huge social media fan, but they are not the same thing. And that's why, for me, when it comes to automation, it doesn't make any sense. The whole benefit of Twitter is within the first 5 minutes of your tweet. And if you're not there because you scheduled it, then you're going to miss the entire point of Twitter, which is engagement. People asking questions. And people say to me, well, if I have something so important tomorrow, I got to send out a blog post at exactly 11 a.m. because some study told me I should, but I'm in a meeting. And I'm like, well, what is so important that has to be tweeted at an exact time, but not important enough for you to be there when you do it? It doesn't make any sense.
So I'm really glad to hear you say that distinction. Social media is not really a marketing channel. What it is a customer service channel. It's a networking channel. And if you're the kind of person, if you're the CEO in your company and you're doing your own customer service or you're doing your own networking, then it's a great tool. But if you're expecting to get an ROI of your time, then you're probably looking at it incorrectly as the tool that it's designed to be. So that was a great distinction.
We've sold it all wrong. It's my industry's fault. We've sold it wrong to people. We've done it the wrong way. We've made people feel guilty. We've made them feel stupid because they're not doing it. And we haven't looked at it like a business approach. Every smart person in business stands back and says, what would I be using my time on? We should all question what we're doing in business and wonder why, including social media.
So I have a wonder why here. Your new book is called QR Codes Kill Kittens. And so I'm just wondering why you titled it that. I know that it's a no BS discussion of various social media and social connection tools. So before we delve into the great content that's going to be layered in that book, explain the title for us.
It comes from one of the highlights that people always love in the talks I do, which is I have a rant about QR codes, and the clip itself online has got about 120,000 views already, and it's just me losing it about QR codes, because QR codes are the definition of kind of blind marketing for me. That every time, I say every time somebody scans a QR code, a kitten dies. Because they usually go to the wrong page. They usually go to a non-mobile friendly site. I've seen QR codes on billboards. While you're driving on the freeway. Like it hurts my brain, because it's almost like the people who do question things like social media or good customer service don't question at all, slapping a QR code on everything.
So in reading the book, there's a lot of great stuff that jumped out, but one of the first things of note was you write, never leave people to their own intelligence. So talk about why this is a big mistake.
I believe that I think, 80% of the world are morons. Nobody listening to this. None of the readers of success are morons. Everybody else, though, it applies to.
Right.
I just think that a lot of the times people don't realize what they want. If we ask people what they want, we'd never have Facebook. If we ask people what they want, we wouldn't have the iPhone. I just think that sometimes when we ask people for feedback all the time, it may hurt innovation. That I think that when you look out there and ask people, hey, do you scan QR codes? And they say yes, and then you watch them for a year, they never scan one of them. There's a difference where a lot of times questions are asked wrong, and it's almost like an environment and a conditioning type of thing. People don't really know actually what they want. And then that's not even to mention the plethora of people like the YouTube commenters and the Twitter trolls and the Facebook commenting, Vikings that go out there and try to rip you down. I always tell people that we're going to get hit with a lot of hate, a lot of negativity, especially when you open it up to online, because then you open it up to the world. And I tell people, people say, why don't you just try to kill them with kindness? Why are you angry all the time? And I just tell them I'm not the jackass whisperer, and neither are you. Your job isn't to rehabilitate those people. Your job is to find the good people, your customer base, and work with them versus, going the other way.
I can't wait to use that line when somebody comes at me with something. It's like, hey, I wish I could help you, but I'm not a jackass whisperer. So
I got a sticker, man. I got stickers and posters. If you want them, I'll send them all down.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so something else that stuck out that I want to ask you about is you write, quote, social media is about who you connect with, not how many. And I think this is also a thing that has perplexed people, where they're just trying to rack their numbers up, but they're not actually doing anything with it that's effective. So talk to us about this conundrum.
Well, and I know you know this, Darren, this goes back to old school networking. Same thing, same rule applies. It's not filling the old school Rolodex with every name out there. It's filling it with the good ones, the right ones, the ones you connect with. And it's the same offline as it is online. I don't find that offline a networking event, it's not how many cards you give out. You shouldn't give out 100 cards in an event. You should give out 3 with the 3 people you had good conversations with that you want to follow up with. And that's the same with social media. But the problem is, us as a society and us as consumers, we put value on numbers. We put value that we look at somebody and say, they have 100,000 followers, they must know what they're talking about, which I have proven, people who have 100,000 followers do not. And it's just this visual, it's a perception. We have to take the weight off that, because you can buy followers, you can game the system, you can buy YouTube views, you can buy likes, plus ones. And the problem is it doesn't mean anything. It's the weight. And that's why that Forbes thing, the influential kind of data thing they did, meant something to me, because it was not a follower count. It was about reach, and it was about the right reach.
So I was listening to a presentation you gave on social media, and something you said really stuck out to me, and I know it will benefit our listeners as well. And you said, social media does not change the fact that relationships take time. And I couldn't agree more. So just speak to that for a moment.
That is, to me, one of the most important things I can get to people, is that they join Twitter, they join Facebook, they join any of the platforms, and they do it for a week. And when I say a week, I mean like 10 minutes a day for a week. And they turn back to me, and this has happened a lot. They turn back to me and say, it doesn't work. And I say, look, if you go on this thing for a week for 5 minutes a day, it's like walking into a networking event saying, what's up? And then I got to go, and walking out the door. Everybody knows in-person networking takes time. You've got to go to multiple events, multiple meetings, multiple get-togethers to get known. It's the same with social. It takes time. And for me, I use the term social currency, which is you have to give your time and your effort and your energy to a site like Twitter before you try to withdraw some currency. People who get on there and say, hey, read my blog post. Hey, can you do this for me? Hey, check this out right away. They don't get any traction. And those are the ones that say it doesn't work. But those are also the same people that go to in-person networking event with their brochures and hand them out to everybody. So you have to give time. And I promise you, that's how it worked for me. I didn't tweet anything of my own. I didn't tweet a blog post or a promo or anything until I had tweeted 10,000 times. Now that's excessive, I know, and I don't expect anybody to do that. But I wanted to give to the network before I asked, because then when I said, hey, by the way, here's my new book, it sold like crazy because I had built my platform. I had given my social currency. So when it came to withdraw, I had plenty in the bank.
So final question for you today, Scott. If we had to take a little sticky and put it on our computer screen or on our mobile phone, that was like the one rule we need to keep in mind to either heighten our engagement or to prevent us from making the colossal mistake, what would be that one thing on a sticky that we need to keep in mind long after this interview so that we can heighten our engagement online, in person, or make sure we don't make that colossal mistake? What is it?
I think if you believe that relationships build business, then make building them your business. That's it. If we all believe that relationships are the thing, then why are you not making part of that your business strategy? People do business with people they know, like, and trust. What are you doing?